This is section 3 of part 1 of our Vectorworks drafting tutorial. We're going to look at drafting the proscenium, the smoke pocket, and the plaster line of the generic theater that we're going to be working in. So I'm in my drawing that we've been working on, and I'm going to go back into the theater floor plan layer, since this is where we're actually going to be drawing the architecture of the theater itself. And we can start working with some more of the basic tools. So I'm going to come over to here, and I am going to select the 2D polygon tool. Keyboard shortcut is 8, but I'm going to click that once. And up in the toolbar, I've got some different options of how to create this. I want to make sure that I'm in vertex mode, which is the default, which is what I'm in. We can actually just start this randomly anywhere in our drawing. We're going to worry about where it's actually placed a little bit later on. So I'm going to click once to start my line. And I'm going to move this out to the right. You can see that I am moving it horizontally, and there's what's known as the floating display bar, which is telling me how far my line is at any given time as I move the mouse. But we can also edit this. So I'm going to hit Tab once, and I've now tabbed into the floating display bar. It just happened to be highlighting it at 13 feet 2 5/8 of an inch. I want to change that to 11 feet. So I'm literally going to type in 11 and the apostrophe, which is the shortcut for feet. And I'm going to hit return or enter once. Okay, that's going to give me this red dashed circle, and I can move the line anywhere along it. I want it to be horizontal, so I'm basically going to put my cursor right at that point and click again, and now it's going to give me a line that's 11 feet long. As I move my cursor up, you can see that the line is continuing because we're creating a polygon, right? We're creating a closed shape. So we're going to move on with how that is going to be constructed. So now I've moved it so that it's vertical from the point that I've just selected. I'm going to tab into the floating display bar again, and I'm going to give it a distance of 1 foot 2 1/2 inches. The inches is the quotation marks, which is our shortcut for inches. I'm going to hit enter. It's going to give me my circle again. I'm going to click again, and I know that that line is at that exact distance. I'm going to go off to the left horizontally and tab into it again, and this time it's going to be 1 foot 2. If I just leave 2 without the apostrophe, that'll default to inches, so I can just do that. I'm going to come straight, oops, I need to set that. So again, I'm going to hold shift, I'm going to click right there to set that line. I'm going to zoom in just a little bit using my wheel mouse, or my mouse wheel. Then I want to go vertical again. Again, I'm going to tab in, and this time I'm going to tell it it's 4 inches. Holding shift until I'm vertical at the length, clicking again. Then I'm going to come out horizontally and work on finishing this out. As I come horizontally, if I hold the shift key but bring my cursor down to the end point, it'll line that up exactly, which is precisely what I want. So I'll click that once to set that length, and then again, coming vertical back down to my endpoint, I'll click that again, and that has completed my polygon. It's entirely closed, and that's the shape of part of my proscenium arch. Okay, so we need to affect the line weight on this and change a couple of other things. So I'm going to come over to my attributes palette. I'm going to hit the drop down on the line weight, and I'm going to make the line weight of this to be 20. So I'll highlight that, I'll click it, boom, we can see that the thickness of those lines has increased. We're also going to change the fill. On this, our drafting standard is generally that the proscenium and the outer architecture of the theater are hatched. So we want to change that. So up in our fill area of our attributes menu, where it says solid, I'm going to click on that drop down menu, and I'm going to select the hatch feature. Okay, it's changing it to some random square hatch that I don't like, so I want to fix that. So again, I'm going to click on that drop-down menu. And much like it did when we were working on the title block, it's going to open the resource manager in the section specifically dealing with hatches, right? We have Vectorworks libraries, defaults, attributes. As a hatch is what we want to do. We're just going to click on default hatches. These are all ones that exist in Vectorworks that can kind of be made as a default. We're going to scroll down and we're just going to click on brick HF. That's a good one. I'll double click on that and it changes my hatch to something that looks a little bit more standard for what we want to do. So we've got half of our proscenium built, so we need to create the other half. So we're actually just going to mirror it over. So I need to select the object first. Click on it once. There are all of my endpoints, and I know that it's highlighted in orange, so it's selected. And I'm going to go up here to the mirror tool in the basic tool set. Apparently its keyboard shortcut is equals. I don't use that one very often, but you certainly can if you want. And I'm going to click on that to select it. And up in the toolbar, we're going to notice that there are two duplication modes. Right now I'm in duplicate mode of the mirror tool. If I click on this one, it's the standard mode. The standard means that I'm mirroring it across a line, but it's going to delete the initial object that that I was referencing. I don't want that because I basically want a duplication, or rather a mirror of this object. So I'm going to click on the duplicate mode. I'm going to set my cursor at this bottom corner. It's going to give me my endpoint, smart point. I'm going to click once and drag my cursor up. That's going to give me the reference line of mirroring. Now I've got the shift key held down so that it's vertical, but you could mirror it across that line, which is going to give you a different look that we don't necessarily want in this instance. But you can see there are a number of options. So we're going to just do it vertically and click again. And now I have the two parts of my proscenium. Obviously, our proscenium doesn't butt up against itself like that. It has an opening where our stage is. So this section that we just created needs to move. So we're going to use the Move tool. The keyboard shortcut for that is Command M, but the menu location for it is under Modify, Move, and then Move. We're not going to worry about Move 3D. That has to do with three-dimensional drafting, which we're not going to get into. But I'm going to select Move, and a new box is going to come up. And we're going to move it by the Cartesian point. This gives us an X and Y offset, or how far we're moving it. This is very much like a graph from high school algebra. So your X is your horizontal axis, your Y is your vertical axis in terms of how you want to move it. So we're going to do the X offset because we want this to move horizontally, and we want to move it 38 feet. So with that highlighted, I'm just going to type in 38 feet and click OK. It moves it out of my frame, but when I zoom out and pan over, there are the two halves of my proscenium, and our theater is starting to come to shape. Okay, so let's work on creating the smoke pocket for this. So I'm just going to zoom in on this this half of the proscenium. And I'm going to build this using rectangles. So our rectangle tool is up here in our basic tool set. Our keyboard shortcut is the number 4, if you'd like to do it that way. Here again in our toolbar are the various ways that Vectorworks will allow you to draw a rectangle. More often than not, you're going to want the corner-to-corner method. The other ones are there and they absolutely have their uses, but I would say 95% of the time you're going to want to do corner-to-corner. Okay, so in creating our smoke pocket, I'm going to start at the upper right hand endpoint corner of the proscenium, and I'll click once, and now you can see I'm drawing from corner to corner, and I can make this rectangle various sizes, but I still have my floating display bar, and that's how I'm going to edit this right now. So I'm going to tab into it once, and it gives me the delta x value, or how far we're going on the x-axis. This is where it gets into negative positive. If you're moving it to the right, it'll give you a positive number. That's 1'7". If you move it to the left, it gives you a negative number. And it basically is just saying from the origin point that you just established, are we plus or minus on the x-axis? We're going to be minus. We're going to tab in and we're going to say we want it minus 2 feet. Oops, minus 2 feet. We're going to hit tab again to get to our delta y in terms of how thick it's going to be. And this is actually only going to be 1/4 inch thick because it's a piece of plate steel. So I'm going to do 1/4. Again, it's going to default to inches when I hit enter. There's my rectangle. I can click once and my rectangle is in place. Okay. So then to finish this out, I still have the rectangle tool selected. I'm going to start on the top left corner of the rectangle that I just drew. Click to start my rectangle. And I'm going to tab into delta x. Again, its thickness is only going to be 1/4 inch. So on the x-axis, I want that to be 1/4. And we're going to make it 6 inches for a pocket for our fire curtain to ride in. So in delta y, we're going to make that 6 inches, and I'm going to hit enter. There's my distance. Click to finish that circle. Then I'm going to do that one more time in the top right corner. Click and start my rectangle. My delta x is going to be 2 feet, and my delta y is going to be, again, minus 1/4, because I've got a 1/4 inch piece of plate steel. And I'll hit enter and click to finish it. And so now I've created my smoke pocket. I want to be able to manipulate all of that together. So I have the top one selected. I'm going to hold down Shift and click both of the other rectangles. And then I'm going to group them. The keyboard shortcut for grouping is Command G, or the menu location is Modify Group. If I click that, I get a highlighted box all the way around what I just grouped together, and now when I select it, I'm moving all of those things at the same time. And we've created the smoke pocket. So that's all set and ready. Let's give ourselves the plaster line again, right? The imaginary line that runs horizontally from proscenium to proscenium that is usually our reference point. So once again, I'm going to select my line tool, which is in the basic tool palette right here, or we can just hit the number 2. There's our keyboard shortcut. And I'm going to take a line from this point directly over. Right now I'm holding down, I have it selected. I've clicked once, I've got the line selected and it's moving, and then I'm holding down the space bar and clicking to get that pan tool temporarily so I can get over to this part of my drawing and get to this endpoint and click again. We can see in the floating display bar that it's 38 feet, which is how far we moved it. That's going to be the size of our proscenium opening. So I'll click that once again, and I've got my line. We need to change a couple of more things about our plaster line, just so that we're in accordance with most industry standards. So with it selected, I'm going to go up to the line weight in the attributes palette and tell it that the line weight should be 7. That'll make it just a little bit thicker. And then proscenium lines also have a different line type. And so in the pencil section of my attributes palette where it says solid, I'll click there and I'm going to come down to line type and tell it that I want to create a different type of line. It's automatically going to default to whatever this this hatch is. If we want to change that, we can select on it, and once again it goes into the resource manager of that specific tool, which is our line. So if I click here, here are the various line types that Vectorworks has in it inherently. And we're looking for the ISO 03-spaced. I think that that's what it was defaulting to anyway, but just to double check, we'll click on that. And then it gives us a dashed line all the way across our proscenium, indicating where our plaster line is. So right now we only have a smoke pocket on one side. We obviously know that's not the case. That fire curtain rides and things on both of the sides. So I'm going to just kind of pan over here and grab the group that I created of my smoke pocket and select my mirror tool again in the basic tool set. And then I'm going to find the midpoint of the plaster line that I just created, and I'll click on that once, holding shift, moving my cursor straight up, and clicking again, and now it has mirrored the smoke pocket over across that point over to the other side and completed it, and we can start to see our theater take shape just a little bit better. We want to indicate that this is in fact the plaster line of the theater. So we are going to put in a bit of text. So for starters, we're going to go to text up at our top menu. We're going to say font, and we're going to select the graphite MM that we did before. It may appear up here, otherwise just scroll down till you find it. Of course, it's got a check mark. That's what we're already in. Lovely. And then I'm going to come back up here, and I'm going to change the size to 24 point because that's what I want for this specific thing. Then I need to activate my text tool. It's in the basic tool palette. It's right here. Its keyboard shortcut is the number 1. So I'm just going to hit 1. It'll give me a cursor. Now wherever I click is where I'm going to be able to start typing. So I'm going to click once and give it the letter Shift P for a capital P, and then hit escape once. It'll exit out of that and just have it highlighted as a specific object. I'm going to create another one. So 1, place my cursor, the letter L. Okay. And then I'm going to select both of these. So the L is already selected. I'm going to hold shift and click on the P to select it as well. And in my attributes palette, I see that their fill is solid, which means there's a solid square of white around these objects. So if I were to take them right now and place them on top of my proscenium, that hatching goes away and it's filled with the white. I don't actually want that. So I'm going to go up to the drop-down menu and I'm going to say none. So now there is no fill, and if I move one of them on top of something else, I just get the letter, not the fill around it. Great, so I've got my P and my L. I'm going to take these and just kind of stack them on top of each other. Again, kind of an industry standard for centerline and plaster line that is just indicates that's what that is. And once I've got those positioned the way that I like, I can select both of them. Here I'm just drawing a marquee around both of them. You could also hold Shift and click them. But now they're both selected, and I'm going to create a group out of them. Again, Command G will create that group. Now wherever I move them, they're going together. I'm going to position that right there to indicate that this is where my plaster line is. So we've got the proscenium and the smoke pocket and the plaster line of our theater. It's starting to come together nicely, so we'll continue on in section 4 of the tutorial.